President Officer Stigman. So a lot of you guys are, how many of my Walnut kids? So most of you guys remember me from Walnut too. Those of you that haven't met me, my name's Officer Tjaden. I've been a SRO for 3 years now. So at Walnut for 1.5 years, and I came up here last year. So I've been a police officer for 13 years. April 19th was my anniversary. I worked for the Hall County Jail for 11 months prior to becoming a cop. Before that, I did body work and painting. I used to climb communication towers. The highest I ever climbed was 970 feet to change a light bulb. Okay, so I've worked a lot of different jobs, done a lot of different things over the years. So today I'm going to talk about my career as a police officer, though. I have a handy dandy list of possible talking points. Otherwise, I will ramble on about endless things, and that's what I use to keep me focused. Okay, the first question is, what are some of the challenges of your job? Some of the major challenges that I see, and it's changed a lot since I started in law enforcement. The biggest one is probably public perception. Everybody thinks that cops are out to get you, that all we want to do is hurt people. You hear all the racial stuff going on with law enforcement. So that's a huge thing for me. That is one of the worst parts about the job is I've been accused numerous times of being a racist. You only stop me because I'm black. You only stop me because I'm white. You only stop me because I'm Hispanic. The reality is there are some police officers out there that do have those thought processes. They do. I'm not going to lie. There are some bad seeds out there. The thing that bothers me the most is that's not the way I am. I have black friends. I grew up over on the east side of town across from Lincoln School. So I grew up with a lot of Hispanic friends. I didn't look at people by color, but amazingly enough, with the way social media works and the way the news works, they paint us all as racist, and that bothers me. You know, that's not the way that I work. If you screw up, I don't care what color you are, I'm gonna hammer on you because that's what my job is, and I want to try to teach you a lesson. So that's one of the challenges. The other one of the challenges about being a cop is, honestly, we see a lot of nasty, nasty things. We see a lot of things that we can't unsee. Too many people think that cops, well, I'll just use it bluntly, too many people think that cops are asses, that we think we're better than everybody else because we don't go out and talk and we don't do a lot of hugging and we don't do a lot of that stuff. Guys, some of those things that I've seen in my career as a police officer are things that most people never ever see or understand. I've walked in houses where kids are treated worse than the dogs. I've been in houses where babies are crawling around in dog crap and cat crap and eating dog food to survive. I've worked stabbings. I worked a shooting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I worked a lot of really, really horrible things. Child abuses, domestic assaults, trying to help people. So there's a lot of stuff that I can't unsee. Those are things that I have to live with and deal with all the time. Okay, so there's a couple of my challenges. The most rewarding project that I've done as a police officer, I'm a drug recognition expert, which means I've done extensive training on what to look for people that are under the influence of drugs. Primarily, the DRE program is set up to get drunk or drugged drivers off the streets. The rewarding part of this is I'm making my community safe by taking people off the road that are high and trying to drive. And I also teach other police officers throughout the whole state of Nebraska what to look for. To me, that's very rewarding. The other thing that's rewarding for me is I grew up in Grand Island. I graduated from here in 1991. You guys go try to find my picture on the wall, you probably won't recognize me because I actually had hair and it looks kind of like a mullet. But I grew up here. Grand Island is where I've always lived. So it was very important for me to get back to my community because I feel so strongly about Grand Island. It's a great place to live. There are some things that are boring here. I'll admit that. It's way better for you guys than it was for me growing up. We didn't have indoor football. We didn't have a field house. We didn't have any of that stuff. So, you know, it was important for me, and that's very rewarding for me to be able to give back to the community that I've always been a part of. What project do you consider a classic war story? Why was it so difficult? The one that I told you about a little bit ago on the challenges part. I worked a murder-suicide here in town where a guy had shot his wife and then he took off from us. We ended up catching him over on Highway 281 and he ended up shooting himself in front of us. That was something that was really hard for me, not because somebody's dead, because I've seen dead bodies before, but it's the visual part of it that was so tough for me to get over. You know, it's not often that you are pat searching somebody that's dead, that's still warm to the touch, but you know they're dead and they're bleeding on the highway. Okay? So many people, like I already said, think that this job is so easy and all I do is sit in my office and all cops do is go eat donuts, stop cars, and harass people. That's very, very small part of it. So that's kind of a war story. Don't like that one, and I'll be honest with you guys, I've had tons of nightmares over that thing. It's not easy. Another one of my war stories that I talk about, and I talk about it often, especially with people your age and when I was at Walmart. One night I was working, got detailed to a man in the street with a gun call. This was 1:30 at night over on South Oak Street. How many of you guys live over on South Oak Street area? Okay, is it dark over there? Yeah, it's really dark over there, right? So I park a block away, get out of the car, start walking up, see the guy standing in the middle of the street. See a gun, looks like an assault rifle, standing in the middle of the street. What's my job?
Get that gun.
I have to protect, so I have to go towards the guy with the gun. Okay, I start sneaking up, trying to use cover like trees and cars to protect myself. I get close enough. I have my duty weapon drawn. I take my flashlight. I hit the person with the flashlight, not hit, turn the light on, and tell them to drop the gun. This person takes off running. I get in a foot pursuit. I run around a house. At this point, I see them stop, and all I can see is shadows because it's dark over there. I take out my flashlight. I take out my gun. I'm pointing at the person and I'm screaming at them at this point. Drop the gun, or I will shoot. Any of you guys ever shot a gun? I know that there's some distance and trigger pull on our guns. You pull it halfway and there's a stopping point. At that stopping point, if I move my finger anymore, it fires the bullet. I was all the way to that stopping point. I'm screaming at this person to drop the gun. Hit him with my flashlight. It's a 12-year-old kid. He has a airsoft gun, and he's out screwing around. I almost had to shoot a 12-year-old kid over a play gun. That was something that I would have had to live with for the rest of my life. That's why anytime I get an opportunity to talk to kids in general, I always tell that story because that's something that you need to think about. That especially when you're dealing with the airsoft guns that look so realistic, I almost killed a 12-year-old boy over that. So those are my war stories on that. Why did I choose this particular career? When I started off and I was telling you guys that I've had all kinds of life experiences, I have. I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was young. My brother was 7 years old and got leukemia, which is a form of cancer. My job growing up, since parents weren't together, my job was the man of the house. My job was to protect my brother. My brother was mouthy, way mouthier than I am. He used to go out and he used to start fights with people. He couldn't fight because he was always sick. So whose job was it? Mine. I was always bailing him out. So my whole life, I kind of grew up protecting other people, including him. So for me, law enforcement was a natural, easy thing. I always wanted to protect the little guy. That's what I've always wanted to do. So law enforcement was easy for me to jump right into because I already had that mindset and mentality. How does your career affect the world? Will this position be around in 5, 10, 15 years? I don't foresee any time in the future that law enforcement will not be here, just because of the way things are. We always need to have someone protecting us, right? That's what our job is, so I don't foresee that job going away anytime now. I may not be here 15 years from now, but the job will still be here. Why did you choose this job? Like I already said, just to serve my community, to make a better place for people. That's why when this opening came up at senior high, I jumped all over it. You know, when I was here, we didn't have a police officer in the school, which I think would have been an awesome thing. But that was some of the reason why I took this section of my job, is just to be up here, to be around you guys, to be able to talk to you guys, and hopefully give you a little bit of knowledge to help keep you out of those situations when you get older. You know, because a lot of you guys are getting tediously close. How old is anybody 17 in here yet?
No, just freshmen.
It's all freshmen. Okay, you guys got a couple years. Reality, guys, is when you turn 18, you can go to jail for stuff. That's the reality. And not all the patrol officers understand things the same way that Officer Stegman and I do. We don't want to have to throw kids in jail. We don't like that part. At 18, if we don't get you guys the lessons taught before then, the reality is you can go to jail. So, what's a typical day for you? Usually first thing I do in the morning, once I go on duty, is I'm driving from my house to the school. I'm watching for traffic stuff, watching for anybody doing suspicious things on my way here. Is there times where I stop and talk to them? Yeah. But that's primarily what it is. I get here, first thing I gotta do, pretty much the same thing you guys have to do. I start checking for my emails, see what I have planned for today, start reading reports. There's a lot of times that Officer Stegman and I will come in first thing and we'll find out that there's 2 or 3 runaways. So what do? We have to check to see if the students are listed in school or not. So we have to go through reports. We also have to let the principals know if there's something that is important with the student, like if the student's having some troubles at home, or if the student has committed a crime and the principals need to know about it. So we kind of go through all that stuff. Throughout the day, we handle any kind of criminal complaints here. That ranges from traffic out in the parking lot or around the school, to fights inside the school, to destruction of property, anything like that. We take a lot of reports here, just because this is like a small community. Heck, senior high is bigger than a lot of Nebraska towns. So there's a lot of work here and there's a lot of things to be done. Plus, I have to cover 3 elementary schools too, which includes Dodge, Knickerham, and Seedling Mile. So I got a lot of people that I'm covering and taking care of and trying to do reports and follow up on. So, how would you rate your job on a scale of 1 to 10 on the basis of fun? Sundays, I have a lot of fun. It would be a 10 easy. You know, the days where, especially when I'm not so much in the school, I'm out on the streets, and we've got calls of people with a gun, someone breaking into a house, that kind of stuff, that's fun. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I like that stuff. The days that I have to sit in the office and type for 7 hours straight, you're probably down around a 2, because that's not as much fun sitting there typing. Although I do like the challenge. For me, a lot of it's like a chess match. I have to write my reports thinking ahead to what the defendant and their lawyer are gonna be trying to pick apart on what I'm doing. It's kind of a challenge. I like that part, so I guess 2 would be a little low. I'd say closer to a 4 or 5. But on average, I would say it's probably an 8. Is your job mainly physical strain, mental strain, or both? What would you guys think being a police officer would be? Would it be more physical or more mental?
Both.
Very good answer. It's both. We, as police officers, on the mental side, I have to be a cop, I have to be a lawyer, I have to be a counselor, I have to do so many different jobs. I have to be a teacher sometimes. I have to be a taxi driver. I have to, so I have so many different jobs. There's a lot of mental part to being a police officer. I can't just say, stopped you for driving crazy, wrote ticket. Doesn't work that way. I have to be articulate. I have to explain why he was driving crazy. What was he doing? Oh, he was driving, swerving within the lane, hit the curb, struck a mailbox, hit a parked car, swerved all the way across the road, hit the other side. I have to explain that. So there's a lot of mental side of it too. On the physical side, are there fat police officers? Yeah. But in our line of work, you have to be in some sort of shape, or else the likelihood of you getting hurt or killed yourself is pretty high. What are you humming about? No, go ahead. You did it loud enough for everybody to hear, so you're thinking something. What is it? Come on.
I'm good.
Could you outrun me? Yes, you could.
Probably.
That's why I have a car. I'll let you run until you get tired, and I'll get out, put you on the ground, put you in handcuffs, and I'll take you where I need to go. You just gotta be smart. There you get to the mental side. So there has to be a certain amount of physical side of this. We're trained on how to fight. We're trained on how to fight one-on-one. We're trained on how to fight from the ground up and everything else. It's not all about all these attachments and everything else we have on our belts. To be honest with you, I've used my taser 5 times over the years. I kind of like to do it personally. I like to be hands-on. I like to grab a hold of people and tell them what they need to do. And if they don't do it, I make them do it. It's physical, but I like that part. So, so it is both physical and mental. Did you know what you were going to be doing, or did you know that you were going to be doing this job when you were our age? No, I started early in high school working on old cars. So I thought I was going to be doing body work for the rest of my life. That's what I did for my first 15 years. And then I still do some on the side. I still love old cars. I still work on old cars. But no, I figured that I would work in body shops forever and never ever figured I'd be a police officer. Didn't figure I'd have the courage to take the job and try the challenges. So, does your job take any special talents? Yeah. There are several different ones. One of them is, like I already talked about, you have to be able to articulate. You have to be able to write a good report. You have to be able to present something and paint a picture for a judge, jury, and the attorneys so they can visualize what happened at the scene or whatever your detail is without having to be there. So you have to be good with words. You have to understand what you're saying and be able to present it that way. Another huge thing about being a police officer, special talent wise, is you have to be able to observe physical indicators. Okay? If I'm interviewing somebody and they're a suspect of a crime, there's a lot of times where I won't ask a question. I'll just be sitting there looking at them. When I'm sitting there looking at them, I'm starting to read their body movements and all kinds of other physical indicators that they're not telling me the truth. There are tons and tons of different indicators that you can tell on somebody whether they're being truthful or not. If I'm out working the street and I'm talking to somebody that's standing on the street corner and I'm watching them as I'm talking to them, I can usually tell when they're getting ready to run. A lot of their indicators are looking down the street, moving around a lot like this. They're looking for places to go. They're doing everything else. It's usually a good sign they're going to run. So you have to be observant of physical indicators too. Can you live anywhere in the U.S. and do your job, or is it only in certain places? You can pretty much do law enforcement anywhere. There's so many different branches of it and different forms of law enforcement. Are there any limitations on your personal and or social life because of the nature of your work? Yes. If I was sitting down at Ball's Sports Lounge getting drunk and you and your family came in to eat supper and you saw me sitting in there, would you guys respect me as much for that?
No.
No. So there are limitations. If I want to have a drink because I'm over 21, I always have to be cautious about what I'm doing and where I'm at. Probably the biggest limitation on social life is family. Most of you guys know I have a son and a daughter that are both students up here at senior high. I've always trained my family, especially when I was on the streets, that if we're out at Walmart and somebody starts walking towards me and they start talking to me, my wife and kids have already been trained to turn around and walk a different direction because I don't want them anywhere near me. I've had gang members that I've thrown in prison that have approached me and started crap with me at stores. So some of my limitations are I always have to be looking over my shoulder no matter where I'm at, which makes it not fun sometimes because I always worry. I worry about my family's safety more so than my own, but that does place limitations on what we can do. How do you advise me to plan for my future? If law enforcement is something that you're looking into, and it's something that maybe you feel is a passion, my suggestions are to study hard, learn and understand English and the way grammar and everything else works together. Because if you walk into a courtroom and try to present a judge with text talk, and you guys know all what I mean, B and the number 4 and crap like that in a regular report, they're not going to respect you. So make sure that you understand proper English and grammar. Study hard. The thing that's nice is if you want to get into law enforcement, you can't go to the academy until you're 21. So you might as well take a couple years of college and get that out of the way. Get yourself set up so that when you do get hired by an agency and go to the academy, you're already set. The other thing that I have on there is if this is something you're interested in, start watching for visual clues with people like I was talking about. Just little indicators to tell, is this person angry without them saying anything? Learning those physical things is very, very important in law enforcement. What are some other interesting jobs that might be related to yours? Security and loss prevention. I know you guys see those guys walking around the mall in the little white uniforms. Security and loss prevention. Some of these large corporations like Principal, they hire people to come out and do safety assessments on their buildings all the time. I think that'd be an awesome job just because you get to go around and you get to pick things apart and tell them what they're doing wrong. But you're also trying to make it a safer place for all the employees there. Another one is like the FBI. Those of you that like to travel, the Marshal Service doing transports would be an awesome job. I got way too old when I got into law enforcement to get into that. Any of those federal jobs, you have to be employed there by age 35 or they won't hire you, no matter how good you are. So the transport deal would be awesome to get paid to fly over to Italy to bring back somebody or fly to Mexico to bring back somebody. You get paid to try or fly and travel and have a good time. So that would be another cool one. What job would you choose to do if you couldn't do what you are now? I'd probably go back to bodywork and painting. I enjoyed doing it. Just didn't enjoy it as much as this job, pay-wise especially, so. What are some things you don't like about your job? I talked about a couple of them earlier. Child abuses, I absolutely hate doing child abuses. So many times we see innocent kids that are trapped in situations that they have no control over, and that drives me crazy. I hate that. The other things are death notifications. Going up to a mother or a father and telling them that their kid got killed in a car accident is not fun. Going up and telling anybody that a loved one of theirs or one of their best friends got killed one way or another, has died, sucks. Because you don't know what to expect when you get in there. You feel for that person, but you have to be a professional, so I hate those two boards. What is the most satisfying thing about your job? Money, vacations, coworkers, retirement, or what? I think the most satisfying thing about my job is helping others. Helping others out of situations they don't like to be. It's the only positive thing about child abuse cases is that sometimes I can actually make a difference and get a kid out of a house that needs to be somewhere else. I like that part. The camaraderie with my coworkers. Law enforcement feels a lot like you guys. Think about your really close friends that you would do anything for. Law enforcement's the same way. We oftentimes get paranoid, and we oftentimes don't open up to everybody under the sun. So our coworkers are our family. So that's one of the things I like too about it is just the brotherhood, for better lack of words, and camaraderie. Also, being part of something bigger than myself. As I've gotten older, I've learned that being part of the police department and being part of Grand Island in a positive way is something way bigger than West Tjaden. And to me, that's very important. I really enjoy that, and that's very rewarding for me to be able to do those things and help and be part of something way bigger than myself. It's rewarding. There's a lot of nights I go home and lay down at bed and think about, man, I actually did something good for somebody else besides myself today. Last but not least, what type of education is needed to do this job? As of right now, the only thing that you really need to do to get a job in law enforcement is you have to complete the academy out of the law enforcement training center by the airport. That's it. Got to be 21 to get in there, but all you have to do is complete that 16-week course. Granted, going to college and getting a criminal justice or a law enforcement degree is something that's very helpful. And I can foresee in the next probably 4 or 5 years, you're going to have at least an associate's degree to get into law enforcement. But as of right now, in the state of Nebraska, you don't have to. So, anybody have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
How much do you make?
I make 33. Let's figure it out the other day. 33.06 an hour, something like that. So times 40-ish. Compared to the body shop, I make a lot more money than I ever did before. It's decent money. It's not as much as teachers make because they're gazillionaires, But it's not bad money, honestly. And a lot of it depends on where you're working too. It's not the same. We don't get paid the same thing that Kearney does. So it depends a lot on your agencies too. A lot of the tribal police, the ones that work on actual reservations, those poor guys probably make $12, $13 an hour compared to us. But a lot of it's based on your union and how your contracts are set up. So when I get to top pay, I'll make about $70,000 a year. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Do you ever help, like, at the state fair, you're like, help be a security out there?
Yeah. I'm on some of my specialty stuff at our police department is, I work on our gang unit. So I help the state patrol. State patrol does the major security out at the state fair. But I go in plain clothes and work out there with them during the state fair to pick out people that are known gang members to us. Kind of strategize with them about things to watch for, things to look for, but yeah, I do end up working out there. And I do have to direct traffic too. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What type of education did you need for your job? He just said that.
Yeah, well, and that's a good question. When I got into law enforcement, when I started working at the jail, I hadn't done any college other than for body work. I started taking college classes when I got hired at the jail. I was working nights at the jail and taking college classes during the day, part-time. And I didn't get my associate's degree in criminal justice until well after I was a police officer. So your only major requirements to get hired on as a police officer in Grand Island is completing the academy out by the airport. Now the jail, you don't even have to go through the whole academy to get hired at the jail. A lot of that's just based on your criminal history and your other stuff educationally. It just depends on the different agencies. Yes, ma'am.
When you work at the jail, like, whether you're if you go, like, you know how you at, when you at, like, in the future, you ask what you do, like, it's your job, like, in the morning, like, what was your
When I worked at the jail, some of the nice thing at the jail is you get different posts or positions throughout the day, your shifts. Like one night I would go in and I would be the one that's controlling the doors for the whole jail. That was called Consul A. If somebody came up and needed door 26 open, I pushed and held the button until they opened the door and got in. So I took care of that. Sometimes I would be in booking, which is where you first bring in a prisoner. You have to get all of their information, take their photograph and fingerprints. And I worked in there a lot too. Then sometimes I would work in individual cell blocks, where I would be in a pod, helping the inmates with whatever they need, making sure there's control there, and also helping with food and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different jobs throughout the day. At the jail, I had way less paperwork than I have at this job, but I also had to keep track of my hours, where I was at from here to here to here, and stuff like that.
would you like, would you like better working at the jail, or, you know, like, you know,
I like being a cop a lot better, for a lot of different reasons. I don't like to be trapped inside all the time. I start getting a little nutty. I'm stuck inside all the time and I can't see sunlight. Plus dealing with the same people day after day after day, and you're working in a cell block, you have, just say 10 people. 10 people having a rough day, having to work with them for 8 or 12 hours, depending on what shift you worked on, gets pretty old fast. So the thing nice about being a police officer is things are different every single day. I have different details and I deal with different people every day. Yes, sir.
You said you graduated from here from 1991, right?
Yes, sir.
So doesn't that make you 44?
Yeah. What they said it was. Oh, you're just trying to figure out my age? Yeah, I'm
I don't
44.
know if you.
I just turned 44 in January.
Have you ever been shot before?
No, I've not been shot.
For them to become a police officer, you had to get tased or pepper sprayed.
You don't have to be, but I did it because I wanted to see what it felt like. It sucks. Both of them do. I would rather be tasered any day of the week than pepper sprayed. Pepper spray lasts for hours and hours and hours, and then you shower, it reactivates it, and it's all over again. Taser, at least it's 5 seconds of a lot of pain and a couple minutes of sitting there afterwards going, man, that sucked, and then you move on. So, anything else? No? Anything Anything from you?
No, thank you so much. Can we give
Problem.
Officer Tjaden 3 on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.